while more people come in, throughout the entire day, I'm going to get started with Brian Ritter, and he's talking about the transition from stagnation to inspiration. Let's give him a round of applause.
All right. It's kind of shady. I guess I'll take my shades off. Actually, look you guys in the eyeballs. Hello, 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 hello. This fantastic celebration. All right. So, as a, by the way, I'm pretty sure the reason I'm standing here right now is because Brittany wanted to entrap me in coming. So thank you, Brittany. She's absolutely brilliant. She's like, how do I get this guy here early this time? We'll stroke his ego a little bit. But it's pretty cool. I know a lot of you guys are really, you probably know way more about this stuff than I do, perhaps. So I can't just be like, whoa, soil is a living thing. Yes, so every time you feed, yeah. But I kind of wanted to start off, and this might be a little controversial, but your garden, like a little garden like this, and the little gardens that you guys have at your houses, and I'm going to go back on my words here in a minute, but it doesn't really matter that much. Not taking hot showers and taking your time and John Starnes bucket gardens and all of these things, they're good. But when you look in the grand scale of things, they probably matter about as much as our vote. And, on the grand scale, it's just such a tiny, tiny, tiny little thing. Now here's where I go back against my words. What is important and what makes these things, a garden like this, it's really cool. You can feed yourself and yada, yada, yada. But what really, the key and the thing that will change the world from a little garden like this and the little things that you do at home and growing spices and sharing food is inspiring other people. That, growing a little food, not driving around that much, whatever. Inspiring other people to do that, inspiring people into a new way of life, allowing people to understand how much they really need and love this kind of a mentality. That's the kind of thing that can really, really change us. So my tagline here is going to be, we're inspiring others to inspire others. Only with that pay-it-forward mentality of, bringing people around. And I think my best example, and Eric, the last time I heard him talk, he talked a lot about Jim Kovaleski. Now, Jim, I've only met Jim a couple of times, and I think he would have been just as happy hanging out with the squirrels as hanging out with myself. He didn't come across as a super people person or anything like that. He was just very farmer doing his thing. And if you look at what he's doing, on the one hand, just coming out and being like, oh yeah, I'm a guy that lives in a tent in my parents' backyard and I garden stuff. It's okay, that's cool. But the beauty of what Jim has done, and the reason why we talk about Jim, and Jim's been in the paper, and Jim has inspired Eric and all of that, is because despite the fact that he's not a natural speaker, not the kind of person that really likes to just get out in front and get it out, he does it anyway. He pulls himself out of his garden and he goes to all of the events. He gets lined up with the newspaper. He uses that little garden that he's taking care of and his mentality and the way that he looks at the world to inspire everybody that comes around Jim Kovaleski. So now his little garden has inspired Eric there. Oh, by the way, Eric is pretty darn good at making videos and getting things across online and websites. So now, thanks to Jim Kovaleski, we've got videos and websites online. Thanks to him, other gardeners have learned better methods to get themselves going. We can't stay contained anymore. It doesn't matter what our strengths are, or what our weaknesses are, or whether we like being around people or anything, it doesn't matter. We're trying to set ourselves up, we're trying to set the environment so that the environment is right to bring up, the kind of transition, the kind of world that we're going for. I spent a lot of time in Ithaca, and I was blown away, and I really think part of my mentality, part of the reason why I'm the way that I am right now is not just because I was born like, oh yeah, cool. No, I actually grew up on a farm excuse me, my grandparents had a farm, so I would spend a month out there every single year growing up, and I could care less about it. Yeah, you want me to get out there and help you dig and water at 4 o'clock in the morning? Yeah, I'll be sleeping in, and we'll worry about this later. I was kind of sorry grandparents passed away, and within a year I was really into farming, like, But the beauty of a place like Ithaca was I showed up with just a little bit of interest in this stuff. And then I got there, and I met the people, and I went around to the organic farms, and I went into the restaurants, and they were serving local produce, and in every supermarket, they had a local tag on the things that came from, 50 miles or less in the area. Now I'm changed. I'm an entirely different person. That vibration I've brought back here, and I, really want to set that same thing up here. One of my heroes in life is a guy by the name of Tom Brown Jr. And Tom Brown Jr. says, animals are instruments played by their landscape. People are animals. So if you go out into a set of woods, you can look around and pretty well tell by the landscape what animals are going to be there, how they behave, what they're going to do, their entire ways of acting. My idea is that, or the idea is that people aren't really that different. I mean, you can take one kid, and it doesn't matter where they're raised, that one person could turn into anybody. People are just like that. We've got a lot of forces, karma and stars and blah, blah, blah. I'll stop letting you talk. But if you take that whole neighborhood, you can say, well, 90% of people are going to be falling within any one person can break out. But chances are that environment is going to have its effect, and you can say that in the mass, a lot of people are going to be a certain way because of the certain place that they're brought up. So changing that environment around here, getting to that point where anybody who comes around to our town, our little transition town here, they feel it. It's happening everywhere. The musicians are talking about it. That's kind of what we're going for. And I think really where that comes from is the base behind it. And when you start eating natural foods and getting your hands in the soil, one of those things you can't really help. But conscious elevation, elevating ourselves to a point where we're no longer, I heard someone say enlightenment was just like being a normal person, just a foot off the ground. Stuff doesn't quite touch you as much. You're able to get more inspiration. So we'll get back to the whole conscious elevation. Also, a lot of people have this mentality of like, oh, you should do this, you shouldn't do that. I had the thought yesterday, it's about, we can either pull people up or push people down. Pushing people up doesn't really work that well because people resist, they fight, they don't. We're like fishermen. Throw that hook out there and pull people up. Allow them to grab onto something that they love and here we go, all right. And once they're brought back into the community, now I'm gonna throw a couple of things that I'm sure all of us have done and they might be counterproductive. Telling people, that I heard someone say once, they were like, you should do this, you shouldn't do that, you should do this, you shouldn't. And he said, stop that. You're going to should all over the floor. Nobody wants that. So, we've got a lot of, oh, you know what you should be doing? You should be recycling. You should take every single glass bottle out there. Why aren't you doing that? Do you know what that's doing to the world? You've got to grow you don't grow your own food. Oh, that's awful. You should be growing your own food. Do you know what's in that stuff? You should also be eating way more veggies. Stop eating meat. You know what eating meat does? That you're eating like a pound of gasoline in that steak, buddy. You should go outside. You should get involved. You should start protesting. You shouldn't take hot showers anymore. What are you doing going to McDonald's? You shouldn't do that. Pesticide on anything. Microwaving in plastic. Driving too much. Drinking your coffee. Is that soy in your vegan food? Do you know where that stuff comes from? That's Monsanto, buddy. Which, by the way, small interlude here, I saw on Facebook yesterday, they are down 50% from where they were last year. Great! That is worth a cheer. I love it. I'm so excited seeing that. That just shows that things are changing. So
it's a lie.
unless it's a lie, just, yeah. Well, of course, their CEO says, this year we're going to do better because blah, 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 blah.
I don't know who made that report.
Yeah. It's one of those things we always have to wonder about that. By the way, Starbucks disposable. I'm just kidding. No, I get them too. See, here's the thing. I mean, it comes down sometimes to, all right, is it the trees that make that up, or is it going to be the water and the soap and all that stuff when we used to wash the glass? It's going to be, everything is a balance. Everything's a balance. Everything's a balance. And you know what? I'm not really ready to give up hot showers. I'll make them short sometimes. I'll do them cold sometimes, but man, there's some days I love a good hot shower. How do I counterbalance that? I feel like humanity is smart enough now that we can do both. We can still preserve the world and take care and appreciate water and the elements and still get a hot shower because we're just smart like that. I say we, small circle. I'm not trying to make that an overarching kind of thing. So the idea of really overwhelming people and all this stuff and blah 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 blah, or underselling people on like, oh, you want to grow a garden? It's so simple. You just have to till up a little soil and throw stuff in. It'll be just fine. Keep people what they're doing. Also, being too political or too idealistic, and I have problems with this sometimes. I get just as outraged as anybody else, even though I'm kind of focusing more on building something now than occupying and being outraged. It's like, all right, let's just let them burn themselves, not the occupiers, let's just let that force burn themselves out, and we'll be ready. We'll have the base for what's going on afterward. But what's that hook? What is that hook that we can get people out for the first time? That we can get people involved, we can get people over to meetings and saying, hey, I want a garden. And, so some of the ideas, the things that everybody likes are community. Everybody loves to be part of a community. We start having community gatherings and these wonderful things. People show up, maybe the first time they're like, this is kind of weird. And then, but you kind of like it. A few times later, like, these are really good people. Wow, my friends at work just don't strike me the same way anymore. What are you guys doing? People love culture. We're a race that has almost zero culture. Our culture is stripped away from us, Hollywood. So giving that sense of culture, food festivals, harvest festivals, all these fun things, these are things that people really want. They just might not know about it yet. People love to belong. That kind of goes with the whole community thing. People love good food. Again, they may not know it when you first cook it for them. They're like, yeah, veggies. Like I just did the Harvest Fest over at the Edible Peach Patch in some schools down in South St. Pete. And, a lot of the parents, you could tell, they'd grown up on chicken wings and wrapped out of the box. And here it was like, yes, I've got a sweet potato with savory beans and spicy guacamole. And they're just like, what? But they take a few tastes of good food, and it's like, oh, okay, this is all right. And their bodies will start craving it. People like their health. They don't want us to tell how unhealthy they are and why they should be doing this, that, or the other, because that'll make them more healthy. But everybody's a little worried about their health these days, and for really good reason. If we come in with the answers of, oh, yeah, we'll grow some collards or a little kale on your property, or hey, I know this herb that can help out with that. It's just a little bit that, all right, cool, yeah, thank you. People like having options. People like having security, the sense of security of knowing that, hey, you can get this $20 porcelain dome and throw it in a bucket and you've got clean water. So next time a hurricane comes, you got a lake, it'll filter it. Whatever water you can find, it'll filter it, no problem, taken care of, $20. People like, really, we can do that? Yes.
Where do you get this?
They're called geophasic domes, I think it is. And I'll give you guys my contact info. My friend Pete Moss had told me about him. He just set one up. But apparently you can put like sewage water in there. By the time it filters through the porcelain, it's drinkable. It's good. It's drinkable. So, yeah, that's what I said. I was like, all right, I'm going to order 3 of them because you never know. Water's pretty important. course, you know, love, peace, understanding, all that good stuff. But how about jobs? I hear our beloved governor talking all the time about, I'm here to bring you people jobs. We need to focus on jobs, 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 jobs. You moron, you're missing the point. We need to focus on doing stuff, and the jobs will come. You know, you want to just like make a bunch of obscure and awful jobs by enticing people here because they can dump pesticides all over, dump poison all over our state. By saying we don't have jobs means we don't have stuff to do. And there's a lot of stuff to do. So why don't we focus on the stuff and let the jobs come? And by the way, if we get to a point where in our community we have a lot of stuff to do. We've got a lot of gardens to build. We've got food to sell. We've got connections to make. We've got markets to get out to, compost to be picked up. There's a lot of stuff that can be done. As I said, some of that stuff couldn't be monetized. That we couldn't train and skill people to take medicinal herbs that we're growing in the gardens, concoct them into different formulas and get them sold somewhere. There's a lot of jobs. So offering people a little sense of like, hey, you're looking for work? Talk to us. We got something for you. How about making it simple? So simple, even a caveman can do it. Because, you know, I know a lot of people, like I've heard this conversation happen where someone's gotten that hook, they've gotten that bit, and they're like, all right, I want to grow a garden. What do I do? And people are like, oh, okay, I'll get you all taken care of. Now first, we got to get the compost lined up from over here. Then we can dig through. Now, let me your yard this way or this way, and maybe we can get back in. And okay, we'll get the planting tables, and all these tables we can get lined up. And they're just so overwhelmed by the time they hear all this stuff. They're like, okay, what do we? And by the way, you need rain barrels, and also you're gonna get this. We gotta make this thing, we gotta work within ourselves to make this thing as simple as it can possibly be. Where we say, okay, you wanna grow some food? We got a compost farm that we've been working on over here. Here are the people with the trucks, a little bit of green biomass. We got this process worked out. We'll rock a permablitz at your house one day, wow, out, show you how to, you know, emails telling people what's good for what times and what areas, the communities to go through. We can take all this complex stuff, really simplify it to, you know, where it doesn't scare people away. And I think a huge part of that is also in education. And by the way, Brittany's tagging on a lot of this stuff just by having this day here. But it drives me nuts when I see, come out, we've got a one-day permaculture class and it's only $250. $250. Come on. I get it. You know, you're real educators, and you have to get paid. We have to find a way that these people can get paid. But I think you're trying to take the money from the wrong people. We need to figure out some free school alternatives. We have to get it lined up where, you know, those basic classes are happening all the time in various spots. You know, whoever can teach them, get out there and teach people the basics that, hey, that soil is living stuff there, you know, the one that I'm not going to give to the permaculture group. Yeah, I mean, really, once people get that tag in and they feel like they understand a little something, they can get to the place where they feel like, hey, you know what I learned today, and it shouldn't be that hard. I mean, who here would be willing to just go out to a community center and talk to 15 people about what you know about permaculture? You know, whatever you know about gardening. Piece of cake, just like that, we can make it happen. And as soon as people do come in, and we get people drawn and we get people attracted to whatever it is that we're doing because they love the idea of this beautiful little garden and they love the love and light and the peace that's showing up in people's faces, we need to make them feel involved and important from the day that they come in. What do you do? I'm a computer programmer that sits behind a desk. Well, that's great. Man, I'm so glad you're here. We really need one of you guys to line up. We're setting up this kind of, you know, people don't really, they work for money because they have to. When people live in a community, they work because they want to be involved in something. They want to feel like they're doing something for the greater good. They want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And again, this is something that's pretty universal, but yeah, people just don't know it yet. They don't realize until they get to be a part of something big, until they get to really feel like, you know, the universe is standing behind them and got this amazing community doing something that they can really fall in. One of my favorite lines is aces in their places, where you take whatever, it doesn't matter who you are or what you're good at, we'll find, we're going to put you right in your spot. We're going to get those aces in their places and allow you to really fill in and and thrive. We're not going to put this kale tree over in crappy soil and out of the sun. We're going to put it right where it wants to be, and it'll thrive, it'll grow well, and those people will stick around, and those people will tell their friends when their friends ask, like, why are you so chipper today? Oh man, I just went to a full moon gathering. They'll let people know for sure. Another big thing, and this is one of the no-nos that I'm seeing happen a lot, and it kind of goes with our conscious elevation, like learning to meditate ourselves and get ourselves past this point, is can we all please stop squabbling amongst ourselves in projects. I see so many good projects go down the tube because us permaculture folk, like, well, somebody over here has a big ego and he doesn't like the way that she's trying to run this project, and this is we can't be doing that. I'm sorry, just stop. Like, I get along with most anybody, but there are a lot of people I don't get along with, and I either choose not to work with them or see the bigger picture and figure out a way of making it work. Because what's more important, the project that we're trying to get across, or our own personal differences, whatever it may be? We gotta stop that. That's one of those things that just drives me out of my mind when I see incredible projects fail because people just can't collaborate. I think if we get to that point, we learn to meditate, pick up some kind of a practice, I don't care what it is. Yoga, Tai Chi, sitting, breathing, whatever it is you connect with, do that. Do it on a regular basis. And I think, we'll find that it's not that big of a deal anymore. Little egoic problems can be flashed to the wayside for the greater good. We'll be able to throw that kite up, allow the winds of change to take us along with them. And along with that whole, meditative spiritual practice, what communities are we tapping into? How do we market ourselves? How do we advertise? No. Thanks very much. But anywhere we go, why aren't we setting things up and for little events like this? Setting it up at our yoga studio, setting it up at the bridge club that we go to. Whatever it is that we're into, let's pass it around. We can't do this by ourselves. We have everybody here with our own little garden. It's all right. If we can get that out and just bring those little balls of light out to spread to the rest of the world, do that through whatever warm openings, our jobs, or whatever it may be, just get the invites out, get stuff going, get things flowing, get parties, concerts. It doesn't have to be, hey, come out to a work day and you can sweat with us for a while. Like, no, we're going over to Brittany's house, and Brittany has a live band lining up in the backyard, and we're going to have good food, and then when they get here, it's awesome. They have a great time, and there's fires, and they're dancing, and Jeremiah's spinning fire, and all this great stuff is happening. Now, guess what? You got a friend. Whenever they hear something's going on, they're like, oh, that place was really cool. I appreciated what they did. What can they hear about a work day now? And it's like, oh, yeah, I think I would kind of like to go to that. Those were really cool people. I want to help them out. The I Ching, which is an ancient Chinese book of wisdom, I won't get into any great detail into, but one of their hexagrams is enthusiasm. It's number 16, enthusiasm. And there's a line from Confucius there, how it talks about how the rulers of old would regulate and put out music because they knew that music was the way to people's hearts, and that the functions and the ceremonies and the feasts were where people brought together that sacrificial rite, and they brought together that the enthusiasm and their joy and all of it. And Confucius says the person who can truly understand what we're talking about here can hold the world like it's in the palm of their hand. What are we doing to get enthusiasm out there? How are we spreading this message? How is it radiating from us? Are we showing that enthusiasm off to people? have we tried to inspire any bands? And I went to a yoga center, and he was like, Maharashi or whatever. He was like, that guy messed up. He had the Beatles on his back, and he didn't use it to change the whole world. Can you imagine what it would be like if we spawned off the next, alright, there'll never be another Beatles, but we spawn off some great band from here, and by the way, they're part of the movement. Imagine what that could do for us. And, I think a lot of that, just kind of comes from that. So I've kind of taken a little idea, or at least a couple of just random ideas, and all it takes is that little bit of inspiration, a little bit of work to manifest big things. Like, for instance, why can't we all just get together and form a meditation mob? We all wear our farmer's stuff, and we go out and we sit in the middle of downtown and have like 50 of us meditating someplace.
That'd be cool.
People would love that. How about a little parade where we get our pitchforks and our things, and maybe we should just go knock on the governor's door with our pitchforks and torches. No, this is a different one. Just set up a little parade where here we go, and we're dancing through the streets of St. Pete, and everybody wonders, what this guy's doing? Like, whoa, cool.
Do it for the Republican convention.
Yes, exactly. I mean, instead of fighting it, I Ching also has a thing where evil, if you try to fight evil directly, it loves it, because that's what it was made for, and it pulls its weapons out, and it's so excited to have someone to fight against. That keeps it fueled. Instead of fighting evil, you just come around and put a lot of energy into the good. You put a lot of energy into the good and just pay evil no attention. And without anything to fight, it'll just fizzle out, and the good will already be there and take over. I booked that I Ching. IChingOnline.net, by the way. If anyone's interested, you can just look it up on your phone, and the guy makes it really simple. IChingOnline.net. IChing.net. If you look it up, it's the first one that comes up. It's really a simple kind of deal. So there's a ton of things that we could be getting together to really market this message. Getting people going around in sidewalk chalk, flyering things up, passing people onto Eric's website. It's not so much what we do. It's the way that we inspire other people to inspire other people. And just coming from my own position, aces in their places, I just slipped my back out a few weeks back, and I've been having, I still get out and turn my compost and dig and all that, but I can't go landscaping on any kind of regular basis. I'll throw this thing out and end up, but it was like, all right, so what can I do? Maybe I'm just meant to be in a whole different position. But I happen to be a fairly decent rhymer, so it was like, okay, when my friend Christy runs the permaculture classes, it's like, hey, we're trying to come up with a little ditty for transitions. Like, all right, what can I do with this? 24 hours later, I came up with a little rhyme for her. Rob Hopkins and his students wrote a decent action plan for creative adaptations, a sustainable roadmap, because they saw our oil will eventually tap, and they'd rather not see society descending into crap. So they tapped into the wills and skills of some simple people. Permaculture writers' minds probably so sharp because they eat well. Hey, Holmgren, listen, what we gonna do when the oil's all done? They said, let's visualize some designs that foster fun. First, the decline of oil is inevitable, but that doesn't mean it's the end of our world. The answers are there. It's too bad roots and lethargic decay. Next, we're inhabitants of a planet that's blessed. We may never arrive at the next. Our species may depend on our transition success. And when that chain of transport breaks, it'll be alarming. And have you heard of global warming? Noticed how bad it's been storming? We better start farming. She's quaking. Nature is pissed, and our race will remain a cancer till we all raise a fist. And first, choose to preserve the earth. 350 parts per million is our ceiling, anymore we're cursed. But this has the opportunity to be a blessing first. So we have this simple framework, let's let ideas burst. And first, let's open our purse strings, bet some dough on alternative energy, solar panels, windmill farms, and see what kind of power that brings. Then we'll take the time to revitalize how we're shifting and localize our food supplies, revitalize our food is nice. And this might remind our communities of collective identities. Diverse groups are hard to deceive, especially with reskilling and training and an education full of heart and hands, not just brain. And we do well to engage in this change, and we're to remain in this world of freaks that surrounds me is getting so lame, man. Oil-addicted a-holes on the verge of withdrawal who will do anything now to bring in the spoils. So open your eyes and you'll find this brilliant natural design. So let's rewind the way we're living, leave long work weeks behind, and find till we gain the critical mass. It takes a blast past our caterpillar consumer past. We better prepare because change for the worse will happen so fast. And the way that we're going to crash. So sorry that's our position. Now everyone has a mission to be part of our momentous movement. Learn to transition where you are. Take a minute and make that decision to turn from oil to soil. I really hope that you listen. Hopefully it was just one little ditty. You know, I can save myself half an hour of talking and get it all right there.
Wow.
Thank you.